Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. A LinkedIn Live presentation from 3Cubed. Today's topic is going to be about SEO versus GEO. I'm going to wait for a few more people to come on before I get started, but I do want to talk a little bit about why we're talking about SEO versus GEO. I don't think a day goes by on LinkedIn when you don't see some sort of a flyer, a post, point of view about SEO versus GEO. Actually, there's AEO as well. I think there's also LLMO. There's a lot of different alphabet soup that's out there. But part of the reason why I wanted to have this LinkedIn Live was because there's so much confusion in the marketplace about what's SEO versus GEO and what are the different types of tools that are out there that help measure GEO. And there are quite a few of them out now. And I do want to talk about that in terms of, a bird's eye overview of what's out there, what the methodologies are, and then go into some examples as well. All right. Okay. All right. The one thing that I think that we should all be aware of when we're talking about SEO versus GEO is, if we take a step back, SEO was launched in the early 2000s. It was an approach to search and a way to find a brand or company online. And what made it very scientific and very helpful to everyone is that there is such a thing as Google Keyword Planner or Google Trends, which actually enable you to understand which keywords are being used by people and how often they're being used. That data exists because Google publishes it. So when we think about SEO, the first thing that we all think about is the keyword. Which keyword do we use on our website? What keywords or hashtags do we have on our social media in order to be found? And so that is the way that we've been practicing search engine optimization for, close to 20 years and a little bit over that. And the biggest difference between SEO and GEO, or generative engines, is that this is one thing that not many people seem to know, but OpenAI or none of the generative AI engines, whether it be OpenAI or Anthropic or Perplexity or even Google, none of them share their prompt data like Google does in terms of search engine optimization. What that means is that keywords are not shared like Google shares search engine optimization. And so we don't really know what keywords or what questions people are really asking and the volume of that. And I think that's something that we should keep in the back of our mind, because we're almost trying to transfer our knowledge and the discipline of SEO to GEO. So just wanted to start off there, because this is one of the key differentiators between the science of SEO and science of GEO. All right, so one of the things that I do want to talk about today is what is everyone in the GEO space actually selling you, okay? All right, but before we go there, I think most of you have already seen a diagram, a PDF, a flyer, something that looks like this, where it says, what is the difference between SEO and GEO? And most of you have seen an overlapping element of SEO versus GEO. So one of the things that you will see on LinkedIn or anywhere else is that SEO is about ranking on Google. And what Google does is drive clicks to your site. And everything that we've been doing for the last 15, 20 years is to optimize the ranking so that you're on the first page and that you're the first one, on the listing, and there's that blue link. And that's what we've been, working towards, rankings and clicks, and making sure that we are found when there are keywords. And so, success is traffic to your site. With GEO, this is a new discipline and there's a lot of confusion around it. But the one thing that GEO is about is to be cited inside AI answers, whether it be one of these clips that you see when you go on Chrome or other search other websites or search engines, and then put in whatever keywords that you want to put in. There are AI answers, and that's AEO. But if you go on to ChatGPT, or if you go on to Perplexity, Claude, you can ask questions and it will come back. The thing is, no one really knows, as I said before, no one really knows, what sort of questions are being asked, because none of the platforms publish this query data. And so the biggest difference between SEO and GEO is that SEO is about rankings and clicks, and GEO is about being cited. Is your brand or is your company being cited when you type in a question? Okay. And then there are overlaps between the two, and that's where I believe things get a little bit confusing. But both of them require good quality content and good quality or authority. And that's why EEAT signals have become so important in GEO. Experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And so that's why, GEO or the Gen AI engines go to articles, blogs that are authoritative, that have a byline with your name on it, with your credentials, and goes deep. So both SEO and GEO look for good quality content, authority, they have entity recognition, and then schema and structured data is part of both of them, because both of them are being crawled by bots, right? And so they need to see good schema and structured data, especially for GEO, to be able to find the sources and then share it with the person who's asking the question. And then, as I said before, with EEAT signals, credible sourcing. So credible sourcing is very important in all of this. Okay, so SEO and GEO seem like they are similar, but there are distinct differences in terms of what each provide to marketers, users, etc. But there are overlaps between them. Okay. One of the things that I came across and I wanted to share with everyone is that there are certain terms that are being used in the marketplace right now, and not everyone is familiar with these terms. One of them is AI visibility. You hear that a lot. AI citations. You hear that a lot. And you do hear about prompt keyword search as well. So what do people mean when they talk about AI visibility? Well, what people mean by this is, when somebody types in a question, does your brand appear in LLM generated answers when relevant topics are queried? Okay, you may say, well, that's really vague. I don't really know what you're talking about. Another way of saying this is AI visibility is the top of the funnel for those people who are familiar with the sales funnel. So it's about awareness. So are the LLMs, generative AI platforms, aware that you exist? So there's a lot of postings that say Google knows you, but you're invisible to AI. And this is what we're talking about. So does AI recognize that you exist? Is there awareness of you? And do you come up at all if there's any category searches? We can talk about some of the ways that this is measured, but what I'm going to talk about is AI citations, because that's another term that's been used quite often. And not everyone understands the difference between AI visibility and AI citations. And, these are all new terms for everyone. So it's not surprising that people get this confused. The way that I would explain this is that it's the bottom of the funnel. So what it is when an LLM, when you ask an LLM a question, what specific recommendation do they provide, or do they actually serve your brand up as the recommended brand or company for that specific question? So it's a little bit different from AI visibility and AI citations. AI citations is a little bit more specific, okay? And then there's prompt keyword search. And this is a little bit of a sort of a difficult topic to discuss because it's a little bit nebulous here. So when you talk about keyword search in SEO, it's very clear, right? Google publishes keywords. What you want to try and do is make sure that those keywords get attributed to your brand, or you can somehow, influence the rankings in some ways, and organically you show up because of this keyword that is on your page. One of the things that, we know is, one, that generative AI platforms don't publish data. They obviously don't publish keyword data. So what are, these vendors talking about when they talk about prompt keywords? And we can talk a little bit more about this, but most of the generative GEO tools that are out there are trying to understand what users are asking and are using different approaches to mimic what people may be doing in real life when they're going to the LLMs, whether it be ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or Gemini. But one of the things that I do have to sort of caveat is that a lot of the prompt keyword search or GEO tools that say they understand what prompt keywords people are using, they're not really, they don't really have access to the actual first-party data. So there's really no ground truth, but everyone's trying to provide directional insights. And that's, I think, very important to keep in the back of your mind. Okay. All right. So when we think about the GEO tools that are out in the marketplace right now, and these aren't exhaustive, but I do want to share with you some of the methodologies that people are using. And people are being creative, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think, when you don't have the answer, if there's no ground truth, what are some of the proxy ways that you can come up with an answer that's directional or that's close to the truth? And that's basically what most GEO tools are doing. So I've divided them up into 3 categories. Some of the GEO tools out there are doing synthetic testing, meaning they're designing the prompts themselves and running these prompts and testing them to see what comes back. So these are generated by the GEO tool companies and saying these are the possible, questions that people are typing in, and they may get some reference from, knowing what sort of search criteria is out there. Maybe they're pulling a little bit from, the knowledge of SEO, but it's synthetic testing. Another methodology that people are using right now is opt-in panels. A couple of the GEO tools actually have panels of users who actually type in questions and have answers come back. And so these are panel, and some of them provide information on how big the panel is and others don't. So for some of the tools, it's a little bit murky and a little bit transparent, but it's sort of another way around it, right? So if you can't access and know exactly what people are typing, why don't we try and go after a representative cohort? This is not that different from market research, right? You're pulling in people who are representative of your target audience and getting their insights. So not that different from that. So that's one group of GEO tools. The second group are doing modeled volume. So this is like modeling econometrics, modeling things to sort of figure out, what percentage of the people maybe, doing this and doing a calculation in the background. That's another way of figuring out what people may be asking these GEO tools. And another one is repeated run tool tests, which is basically running questions, throughout the day, 7 days a week, and trying to figure out what sort of answers come back, and then doing a statistical analysis on this and seeing which company names come up, what is the ranking of the companies, etc. So as you can see, all of these are creative and provides a way, sort of a workaround, since this ground truth is sort of unknown to all of us. The third bucket is agent signals or site signals. This is where you actually have your AI crawler on your site and you measure that. So it's sort of one-on-one, whereas the others are really trying to scale volume and trying to find representation of certain target audiences and segments, etc. So this is one-on-one and one-to-one, so it's like first-party data. But one of the things that I would probably recommend that all of you do is to, whenever you are, sitting down for a demo with any of these GEO tool companies, is just ask them, what is your methodology? How are you measuring this? Because there's some companies that say that they do sentiment analysis, some companies that say that they do keyword analysis, some companies that say citation, ranking, percentage of the time that they can be, they are cited on a particular LLM platform. And so I think, and some of them have fantastic dashboards, really complex and fancy dashboards, but I would just encourage all of you to just take a step back and just ask them, what is your methodology? If you don't have access to the actual data, what is your approach? Are you, do you have opt-in panels? How large are your panels? What are the sort of questions that the opt-in, panelists are querying? Or, with the repeated run approach, how many times do you actually, ping the same question? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it by the hour? These are all things that would be helpful for you to sort of see what's out there. And it's really a judgment call on your end about which ones you'd like to go with, which one you want to subscribe to. And some of them may even have consultants in addition to a tool. So what I've done is, and this is a lot of information, so I won't go into all of this, but we'll give you, some of the buckets and some of the companies that crop up quite a bit. So these are classified under panel and full suite. Profound and Evertune are quite well-known GEO platforms. And I put them at the top because they do opt-in user panels, both of them. I don't think Profound publishes their opt-in user panel, but Evertune does. They say that they have about 25 million opt-in panelists. And then, a lot of them give you some idea of what, sort of metrics they have. So, for example, for Profound, they have AI visibility, citation share, brand mentions. For Evertune, they have usage behavior, AI usage behavior. And then it also plugs into paid media via programmatic partners such as Index Exchange and the Trade Desk. And I know that Trade Desk has been in the news quite a bit, especially on LinkedIn when you'll see a lot of posts about that. But anyway, so some of them have their own methodology, but some of them also tie in with partners to try and extend that knowledge or the insight into further avenues and areas of when people are about to purchase. So depending on, is it purchase intent or is it about awareness building, etc. I want to focus on Scrunch AI for a minute, because this is an interesting company that it does AI visibility searches, but they do it by buyer persona and also by funnel stage. So, they've got, you've got the traditional funnels, and they try and figure out, depending upon the types of questions that have been asked, where your brand is being cited, if it's at the top of the funnel or the bottom of the funnel or middle of the funnel. Okay, and SEMrush has its own AI modules, SEMrush AI. Obviously, they're a very big company with a lot of customers and a lot of data. And the AI overlay is new. It's time will tell what sort of AI insights they will provide. I've got a lot of vendors on the second page, and I'm happy to share these slides with everyone. The ones on the second page are modeled, volume, which is I mentioned was like econometric, sort of analytical, sort of approaches to AI insights. And then also some of them are the repeated prompt runs like ziptie.dev. Yeah, and also Brandlight does repeated multi-engine prompt runs. So they're doing those prompts continuously throughout the day. And so those are interesting. And then the ones on the bottom tend to be ones that are more social media focused or content focused, and they have AI overlaid. And obviously there's going to be more and more tools like that, which may have natively been known to be a content tool or social media tool or something else tool, and now are overlaying AI expertise on top. Okay, so I hope that gave you a sense of what's out there and how the different tools are sort of overcoming this barrier of ground truth. If there's no ground truth, what can we provide you to help you plan and be seen on AI platforms? Okay, so if I sum it up, what can GEO tools do? So they can monitor brand citation share across LLMs. So all of them should be able to do that. Track which sources LLMs cite for your topics. Many of them test prompts and score brand appearance. And some of them are able to detect hallucinations, measure AI crawl activity on your site, track LLM referral traffic via GA4, so Google Search Console, and compare some citation shares versus the competition. What GEO tools can't do, and this is where I think you have to keep your sort of ears pricked up, they cannot report true prompt search volume, and they don't have access to the actual LLM platform query logs. And they can't guarantee that their prompt, data or insights reflects real user behavior. I mean, you can say that those opt-in panels are real users, but it's not like universal. And they can't predict which prompts users are actually typing, except for those opt-in panels. Okay. We're getting to the bottom of the half hour, but before we leave, I wanted to talk a little bit about Reddit and LinkedIn, because that's another post that's been really, really popular on LinkedIn. SEMrush put together a report that said that the two of the highest ranking platforms out there for AI visibility is Reddit and LinkedIn. So a lot of people have jumped on that bandwagon. Just remember that Reddit, my point of view is that Reddit and LinkedIn are spokes, but your site is still the hub. And that these AI tools, LLM platforms, go to these other platforms to look for your brand if your site is thin, okay? Or if your niche category and there's not a lot of information. So it will go out, because what LLMs do is they're not ranking each website, but they're looking for information and then consolidate and cite something, right? So they're looking at a lot of sources to try and figure things out. And so it's part of that process. So remember when there are posts about this, that yes, Reddit and LinkedIn is great. Making sure that your brand company site is not just repost, but actual content is great. But also remember that your website is the hub. Okay. All right, so I talked a lot. Not sure if there are any questions, but wanted this to be first of many LinkedIn Lives, just to share information about SEO, GEO. There's a lot of myths, a lot of truth, a lot of confusion. Everyone's trying to get into it. And I'm sure you are all evaluating, having meetings with a lot of different vendors, and all good. But one question to ask every GEO vendor that you meet is, show me your methodology. How do you go about measuring AI visibility, citation share, sentiment analysis, your ranking, the company's ranking within a particular platform, etc. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, if there are any comments, if you'd like to follow up, happy to discuss any of these things with you. All right, then. Thank you so much.